Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if you have ever, even once, been told that you're too much,
Oh, that's a familiar one.
right? Too emotional, maybe too intense, too ambitious, or just too sensitive, then this deep dive is absolutely for you.
Hmm.
We're going to be talking about an exploration we're calling How to Integrate Your Shadow and Step into Your Full Power.
It's such an essential journey because the thing is, those very traits that you are probably criticized for, the ones you were taught to hide,
Yeah.
they're often the source of your greatest power. We internalize those critiques, and we start hiding these huge parts of ourselves.
And that's what leads to burnout, that feeling of just not being authentic.
Exactly.
So our mission today is really to explore this idea that these rejected parts, your shadow self, they aren't flaws to be fixed. They're actually vital strengths just waiting to be reclaimed.
They're the missing pieces of your genuine wholeness.
Okay, so before we get too deep, maybe we should establish a foundation. Lay out the key terms.
Good idea. Let's start with the big one. The shadow self. It's simply the collection of parts of your personality that you've learned to deny or suppress.
And it's where all this hidden potential is.
That's it. It's got enormous untapped potential.
And when we talk about healing this, the word we use is integration. What does that actually mean?
Integration isn't about becoming like a perfect person. It's the process of accepting and consciously expressing all the different aspects of who you are without judging them.
Okay, and that naturally leads to authentic power.
Right. This is that deep influence and energy that comes from operating from your completeness, not from trying to, force an outcome or manipulate a situation.
So it's influence that's born from being whole.
Exactly. The goal isn't perfection, it's completeness.
All right, let's jump into what is probably the hardest part. Actually finding the shadow. I mean, where do we even begin to look for these parts of ourselves?
Well, the core principle here is something called the mirror of others,
Hmm.
and it's often the most uncomfortable truth to face.
Because it's about looking at what triggers us.
Precisely. We find our shadow material by looking at what triggers us most intensely in other people. What you judge harshly, consistently, and with a lot of emotion.
That's the reflection.
That's the reflection of what you've rejected in yourself.
So to make that concrete, if you are just constantly irritated by women who are really outspoken, or maybe those who seem, I don't know, overly confident.
Or they set these incredibly firm boundaries.
Yes. That intense irritation, that's the spotlight. It's showing you where you've forbidden those exact traits in your own life.
And that's the signpost. The self-inquiry then has to be, when was I told that showing that specific trait was dangerous or inappropriate or just plain wrong?
The intensity of the trigger shows you the strength of the suppression.
It really does.
But I think a big point of confusion for people is discernment. Like, what if I'm judging something genuinely harmful, like cruelty or hypocrisy? How do I tell the difference between that and my own shadow?
That's a critical question. When you're observing true moral harm, your response is generally, sadness or concern, maybe a measured anger.
Okay.
But when you're looking at your shadow, the response is more like fury or intense envy or this sudden rush of shame. It's the emotional charge, that hyperactivation, that tells you the source is internal, not just external.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's connect this to the societal blueprint we've been given. Why do so many of us, especially women, have these specific shadows? It brings us to this idea of the feminine spectrum.
Yeah, we've basically been taught, implicitly to operate almost exclusively on the light end of the feminine spectrum.
And those traits are valuable, of course.
They're absolutely valuable, but suppressing their counterparts creates this systemic internal depletion.
So can you lay out some of those key contrasting traits for us?
Of course. Think of the light traits as being nurturing, collaborative, gentle, accommodating. But when we overuse those...
We suppress the dark traits.
Exactly. Like being mysterious, strategic-minded, discerning, and boundaried. We're taught to be open books and just to give endlessly.
And the cost of that is huge. When you live constantly prioritizing transparency over, say, being private and strategic, you just leave yourself depleted and exposed. You lose the ability to say no without feeling guilty.
And this work, the shadow work, helps you reclaim that necessary discerning power.
Which brings us really naturally into transforming those negative labels we talked about.
The labels.
Yeah. Society hands women these terrible labels when they try to step into their power. We have to reclaim the core strength inside those criticisms.
The labels are powerful weapons. I mean, they're designed to keep people small. So we have to engage in this massive narrative shift. Think about the words that might have been used against you. Selfish, aggressive,
Manipulative,
Yeah.
calculating, bossy.
all of them.
And when we transform that energy, the label just kind of collapses, right? So for instance, that really heavy label of
It
selfish.
transforms into self-honoring.
Okay, what about aggressive? That feels like a big one.
That one, which implies this unnecessary hostility, it transforms into healthy assertiveness.
And manipulative.
That becomes strategic. It's a necessary and useful trait. And if you've been called calculating, that's actually just a thoughtful approach. It becomes thoughtful and foresighted.
And of course, bossy.
Bossy collapses into true leadership-oriented capability.
I think that shift from selfish to self-honoring is maybe the most powerful because it changes the entire foundation of how you give.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It means setting healthy boundaries, prioritizing self-care, and, moving from a place of depletion to a place of abundance. You can only sustain generosity when you're full first.
And that links directly to emotional sovereignty. We're often taught that empathy means we have to absorb other people's feelings.
Which is a recipe for burnout.
Right. So this work requires balancing empathy with really strong boundaries.
Emotional sovereignty is that understanding that you can care deeply about others without losing ownership of your own feelings. We call it empathetic detachment.
So you can support someone and hold space for their pain.
Without absorbing that pain or sacrificing your own emotional stability.
That distinction is so vital because absorbing their pain doesn't actually help them, it just drains you. So how do we actually do this? What are some actionable tools, some words we can use?
You have to have the language ready before the moment arrives. Simple, powerful phrases for you to practice, like, I care about what you're feeling, and I need to maintain my own emotional space right now.
Or something even more direct.
Or the direct and simple, I can support you without taking on your emotions as my own. Creating that clear verbal space, it protects your energy instantly.
This isn't just internal work, though, is it? It has to show up physically. If we've been suppressing our power for decades, we actually learn to physically contract.
Oh, absolutely. Our bodies reflect our emotional state.
Right.
We literally make ourselves smaller when we feel uncomfortable or when we're trying to avoid a confrontation.
So when we integrate, we reclaim our physical space.
We do. And a key practice is developing specific power poses to cue different aspects of your integrated self.
Okay, so what are the three main types of poses?
You need a grounding pose for stability and calm presence, feet firmly planted, shoulders relaxed. Then an assertive pose to connect with your voice and your boundaries.
Maybe hands on hips or a more expansive posture.
Exactly. And finally, a receptive pose, which is for your ability to receive support and compliments and abundance. And that requires opening up, not contracting.
And integrating that physical space also means integrating your voice. I know when I'm suppressing something, my voice gets smaller.
That's right. If your voice gets small or high-pitched when you're talking about conflict, you are not using your full vocal power.
So how do you reclaim it?
A really powerful way is by speaking affirmations aloud, but in your full, uninhibited voice. Things like, I take up space unapologetically.
Or my boundaries are clear and non-negotiable.
Yes. Hearing your own full voice actually changes your self-perception. It's incredibly powerful.
But once we reclaim that voice, there's a risk of the pendulum swinging too far, isn't there? Towards oversharing.
That's a big one.
How do we balance genuine openness with discernment, this idea of strategic mystery?
Strategic mystery is all about being intentional with your vulnerability. We often overshare not out of a true desire for connection, but because we're driven by anxiety or a need to be liked or seeking validation.
And when you share everything immediately, it can feel superficial.
It can. So controlled vulnerability strengthens relationships because you're sharing with intention and wisdom, not just out of habit or anxiety. You decide what to reveal and when.
Do you have any tools for that, like conversational tools to hold that boundary?
Redirection phrases are key. If you feel triggered to reveal too much, you can use phrases like, that's an interesting question, but I'm more curious about what you think.
Or something like, I'm still processing that, but what I can tell you is...
Exactly. It allows you to maintain your privacy gracefully without shutting down the conversation.
Okay, this sounds like really intensive, consistent work. So let's talk about sustainability. This is an ongoing practice, right? Not a destination you just arrive at.
Consistency is absolutely everything. For this, there's a wonderful blueprint that uses 3 types of rituals.
Right.
You need a daily practice, like a quick morning mirror routine where you check in with both your light and your dark aspects. Then you need a weekly review.
Like a Sunday journaling session or something.
Perfect. To assess where you expressed or maybe suppressed a shadow trait over the last 7 days.
And I find this concept fascinating. A monthly expansion.
This is a deeper practice. It's like a monthly shadow date, where you intentionally express a shadow trait in a safe, controlled environment. Maybe you choose 1 day a month to be strategically private, just to stretch that muscle.
I love that. And what are the principles underlying those rituals?
3 main ones. First, compassionate awareness. Notice your patterns without that harsh judgment. Second, progressive expression. Start small and safe before you take these traits into high-stakes situations.
And third,
Balanced integration. You have to watch carefully for that initial pendulum swing where you might overcompensate. The goal is always that grounded middle path.
to make this tangible, let's look at a few examples, like Alicia, the executive who was overly nurturing and really struggled with tough decisions.
Right. Once she reclaimed her decisiveness, her shadow capacity, she could communicate difficult decisions with compassion. Her team respected her integrated approach even more.
Or think about Sophia, the classic overgiving friend.
By integrating her selfish shadow, she set clear, non-negotiable boundaries. At first, she was afraid of losing friends.
But the opposite happened.
The opposite happened. Her friendships deepened because she was showing up from fullness, not from constant depletion.
And finally, Maria, the conflict-avoidant partner. By integrating her suppressed aggressive shadow, she was finally able to have clear, direct communication instead of being passive-aggressive.
Which didn't make her relationships worse, it made them honest.
But that does bring up the biggest challenge, the fear of backlash.
It's a real fear.
If you suddenly start asserting boundaries, people who benefited from your lack of them are probably going to push back.
That is almost inevitable.
So what's the solution for someone facing that pushback?
The solution is intentional communication. You start small, and you communicate your changes clearly and with compassion. But you have to hold this one truth. Relationships that were based on your incomplete or suppressed self were never fully authentic to begin with.
So you have to give those important relationships time to adjust to your wholeness.
Or you have to accept that some relationships that were based on your performance might just naturally fall away.
So what does this all mean for you listening? The essence of this work of shadow integration is radical freedom. It's the freedom to be all of who you are without apology or performance.
The integrated individual doesn't have to choose. You don't have to be either emotional or strategic. You embody all of those qualities, and you express them based on wisdom in the moment, not on old fear.
That wholeness is within your reach, and as you continue on this journey, we want to leave you with one final thought to carry forward.
Reflect on what specific situations or relationships might challenge your integration journey. And then, think about what intentional steps you can put in place to respond compassionately, without judgment, when you notice yourself slipping back into those old patterns of suppression.
Because that moment of noticing,
That's the start of your power.
that's all for this deep dive. We look forward to exploring the next set of materials with you soon.